I did not ask for help that day. That is why what happened stayed with me. It was not a crisis. I was not in danger. I was not even visibly struggling. I was standing alone in a public space trying to figure something out quietly. In the US, that usually means you handle it yourself. People notice, but they keep moving. That is normal. That day in Australia, something different happened. Before I finished thinking through my problem, someone stepped closer. Not intrusive, not dramatic, just present. They asked if I was all right. Calmly, naturally, like it was ordinary. The question itself was not remarkable, but the timing was. They did not wait until I looked desperate or until I asked. They responded to a subtle signal I did not know I was sending. That awareness suggested they were paying attention to their surroundings in a way that felt uncommon to me. In America, public space often feels anonymous by design. People maintain distance as a form of respect. Privacy means not being bothered, so intervention feels like intrusion unless the situation is clearly urgent. This person did not wait for urgency. They noticed hesitation and responded with gentle inquiry. That gentleness mattered because it left me room to decline without awkwardness. The question was offered, not imposed. That distinction changed everything about how the interaction felt. I was not being rescued, I was being seen. Being seen without judgment created safety I had not expected to find among strangers. I almost declined out of habit. Back home, independence feels safer than vulnerability. Accepting help can feel like exposure. But the tone was neutral. There was no pity, no urgency, just awareness. I explained briefly, expecting them to point and move on. They did not. They stayed. They walked with me to where I needed to be. No hesitation, no transaction. That was the part that surprised me. There was nothing to gain, no performance, just action. The walking together felt strange at first because it required me to adjust my pace to match someone else, to share space with a stranger without clear social script for how long the interaction would last or what it meant. But the strangeness faded quickly because they did not make it awkward. They did not fill the silence with forced conversation or ask probing questions about why I needed help. They simply walked. That simplicity removed pressure. I did not need to perform gratitude elaborately or justify my confusion or prove I was worthy of their time. The help was given freely, without conditions or expectations that I could detect. That freedom from social debt made the experience feel clean rather than complicated. When we arrived at my destination, they confirmed I was set and then left without ceremony. No lingering, no waiting for effusive thanks, just a brief acknowledgement and departure. That departure was as important as the help itself because it proved the action was not about them. It was about the situation. They saw a need and met it. Simple as that.
What struck me was how unremarkable it felt to them. They did not treat the moment as generous. They did not wait for thanks. They finished helping and continued with their day. That quiet exit carried weight. Kindness was not dramatic. It was integrated. That integration shifted something in me. I realized I had grown used to guarded interactions. Help often feels conditional where I came from. Here, it felt routine. The routine nature of the kindness made it more powerful, not less, because routine suggests consistency. If this was normal behavior for them, it was likely normal behavior in their community. That meant I could probably expect similar responses in future situations. That expectation changed my relationship to public space. I started moving through the world with less defensive tension because I was not constantly preparing for indifference or hostility. The absence of those preparations freed up attention and energy I did not know I was spending on social vigilance. I started noticing details in my environment that I had been too guarded to see before. The architecture, the light, the way people moved in relationship to each other rather than in isolation. These observations were possible because I felt less need to monitor for threat. That shift was internal, but it was triggered by external consistency. When kindness becomes predictable, trust becomes possible. Trust changes everything about how you inhabit space. Afterward, I replayed the moment more than I expected, not because it was life-changing on the surface, but because it revealed a pattern. I began noticing similar small gestures everywhere. People holding doors without eye contact, drivers slowing without impatience, strangers offering brief reassurance in small public misunderstandings. These were not rare events. They were normal behaviors. The frequency mattered because frequency distinguishes cultural pattern from individual personality. One kind person is an exception. Consistent kindness across strangers is a norm. That norm suggested something about shared values and social expectations that went deeper than politeness. It suggested a collective agreement that public space is shared space, and that sharing requires minimal acts of mutual support.
These acts were minimal in effort, but significant in impact. Holding a door takes 2 seconds, but communicates that you see the person behind you as worth that 2 seconds. Slowing for a pedestrian takes no real time, but communicates that efficiency is not more important than safety. Offering brief reassurance costs nothing, but communicates that confusion is not shameful and help is available. These micro-communications built an atmosphere of basic decency that made daily life feel fundamentally different. I was not constantly defending my right to exist in public space. That right was assumed. That assumption was liberating.
That day changed how I defined kindness. I used to associate kindness with sacrifice or effort. Here, kindness looked efficient, simple, built into daily movement. It did not require drama. It required awareness. Awareness requires trust. Trust lowers tension. That connection became clear to me slowly. When a society assumes cooperation, kindness stops feeling exceptional. The efficiency of kindness here was striking, because efficiency usually competes with compassion in the environments I knew before. Being kind often meant slowing down, going out of your way, sacrificing your own convenience. But when kindness is structurally supported and culturally expected, it becomes part of the efficient path rather than a deviation from it. Helping someone briefly is faster than walking past and having them struggle longer in a way that might create bigger problems later. Cooperation is more efficient than individualism when you zoom out far enough. That structural logic seemed embedded here in ways that made pro-social behavior feel natural rather than costly. The trust component was crucial because trust reduces the need for protective calculations in every interaction. I did not need to evaluate this person's motives or protect myself from exploitation because the cultural context made exploitation unlikely and cooperation normal. That freed me to accept help simply and offer help simply when I encountered others who needed it. The lowered tension changed everything. Social interactions took less energy. Public space felt less exhausting. Daily life required fewer emotional resources because I was not constantly managing defensive protocols. I also noticed how my own behavior shifted afterward. I became more willing to step in quietly when I saw confusion or hesitation in others, not because I was copying anyone, but because the environment normalized it. Kindness spreads when it feels safe. That safety comes from repetition. My willingness to help was not about becoming a better person through moral effort. It was about environmental permission. I saw helping modeled consistently without negative consequences, so my nervous system learned that offering help was safe. That learning was not conscious or intellectual. It was behavioral and automatic. When you see something rewarded, or at least neutrally received, over and over, you start doing it without deciding to. The safety piece mattered enormously because in other contexts, helping strangers can feel risky. You might be rejected. You might be misunderstood. You might be taken advantage of. Those risks make people hesitate even when they notice a need. Here, those risks felt minimal because the culture supported brief, bounded helping as normal. I could offer assistance without it meaning I was responsible for solving someone's entire problem. I could accept a polite decline without it feeling like rejection. The boundaries were clear and the expectations were reasonable. That clarity made participation easy. I started helping not because I was trying to be kind, but because helping was the obvious thing to do in the moment. That shift from effortful virtue to natural response was profound. That day did not change the world. It changed my baseline. I stopped assuming people would stay distant. I stopped interpreting help as risk. I started seeing public life as shared rather than individual. Australians did not announce this shift. They demonstrated it. And once you experience kindness without conditions, it becomes harder to ignore how powerful small actions truly are. My baseline expectations for human interaction had been shaped by years of experience in environments where self-reliance was survival and where vulnerability invited exploitation or at minimum indifference. Those expectations were not wrong for those environments. They were adaptive, but they came with costs I had not fully recognized until I experienced an alternative. The cost was constant low-level stress. The cost was emotional isolation in public space. The cost was viewing every interaction as potentially transactional or adversarial. When my baseline shifted, those costs became visible in their absence. I felt lighter. I felt more connected. I felt less alone even when I was alone because I trusted that if I needed something, help would likely be available. That trust was not naive. It was evidence-based. It came from repeated experience of kindness without conditions.
And that evidence changed my fundamental orientation to the world around me. I became less defensive and more open, less isolated and more engaged. The Australians who helped me that day, and in the many small moments since, probably have no idea how significant their ordinary actions were. That is the nature of cultural norms. They feel unremarkable to the people performing them, but to someone from outside, they reveal what is possible when kindness is treated as baseline rather than exception.